Our next panelist is the director of Alt Mobility. He advocates, Alt Mobility advocates for a dignified and sustainable mobility for every Filipino. It is pushing for a Magna Carta for commuters or a Commuters' Rights Act, putting ordinary commuters at the center of transportation discussions. He is currently taking his diploma on urban and regional planning at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and he is currently connected with an LGU heading the Sustainable Transportation Department. I would like to present Mr. Ira Cruz.
Hi, good morning. First of all, I'm not heading the department. I have a boss.
Sorry.
I have a boss that we draw a lot of inspiration from.
I've
But
just
thank you.
unseated your boss.
Or promoted me. Thank you very much. And thank you to FNF and COD for inviting us and giving us an opportunity to talk about our advocacy and an opportunity to push for the welfare of ordinary commuters. So my name is Ira Cruz. I proudly bike to work. And for close to 2 years now, I've been riding either a bike or a personal mobility device, such as an electric scooter, going to work, going to school, going pretty much anywhere. So we're a group of ordinary citizens. We are transport advocates, transport professionals, and all we want really is for everybody to be able to travel around the city with dignity. That said, we're advocating for sensible and humane transport policies, a transport policy that really responds to the needs of the majority of the population. These are the ordinary commuters that comprise over 80% of the people on the road. We just wanted to clarify, we don't hate cars, just the idea of over-dependence on vehicles. But what we do love is the option for people to be able to choose walking, biking, or taking mass public transportation. So when we started our campaign for Commuters Naman, that's our hashtag, in July 2019, it happened during a time when people living outside of Metro Manila was being discriminated via the provincial bus ban. This also happened during a time when people riding public transport was being discriminated via the strict implementation of the yellow bus lane policy. Of course, earlier this year, we also battled the discrimination against people riding two-wheeler transportation. And in about, I guess, close to a year, the bill that Carrie has mentioned has been filed close to 10 times, if not 10 times, in both chambers of Congress. And so the new normal we're looking at, we feel that of a country with dignified transportation options for its citizens, mass public transport, active transportation option, the ECQ actually presents a rare opportunity to showcase that. And as you were saying, as clear as the skies were a few weeks into the ECQ, we're seeing the importance of transportation in the life of a city. Unfortunately, before we could begin to take advantage, the dark clouds rolled in and public transportation was unfortunately shut down. As unfortunately, it was shut down. That time that we started our campaign in July 2019, there was already a crisis in public transportation. So imagine what it is like today when where public transport has been completely shut down. So when Malacanang declared the ECQ and with it the suspension of public transportation, we knew that the repercussions would hit very hard at the welfare of ordinary commuters whom we've fought really hard to defend. Of course, while the objectives of the IATF EID was to curb the number of cases, the suspension of mass public transportation will have consequences. Public transportation in cities play a critical role in ensuring that the needs of all of us citizens are met. Now, while LGUs were directed by the national government to collaborate with DOTR, it's near impossible to replace an already insufficient public transportation system. Add this to the fact that people often live and work in different cities. So there's a need for a coordinated transportation system, something that LGUs were never in the business of doing. And it's a massive operation that quite honestly takes years and years to study, organize, and implement. Often when we say frontliners, we think about health workers. However, there are many others that fall under this category that require as much assistance for transportation. These are people that make perhaps our work from home or our quarantine that much more bearable. Um, in in my line of there's this, in my line of work, I receive all of this. I'm exposed to firsthand pleas of citizens for help with transportation. This is a range of needs from a health worker seeking relief from having to walk, coming from a straight shift in the hospital. Just this morning, just a few minutes ago, ABS-CBN reported that a doctor died because she was run over by a truck biking her way home. She was biking on her way home. We received complaints or requests for assistance from restaurant workers who's just trying to earn a day's salary. As JC has mentioned, this has effects on the income of people, but also on businesses. How would businesses continue to operate past ECQ if they have had to cover for the salary of their employees without having to operate? Senior citizens looking for assistance to buy their medications. A mother trying to find a way to bring her son for chemotherapy that's overdue since March. A pregnant woman, she's 8 months pregnant, and she's trying to make her way to her OB. Her stomach is hurting, and she needs to walk almost 2 kilometers just to get to a transit stop. In transport, we call all of this first mile, last mile. And in the Philippine context, this is fulfilled by tricycles, a transport staple, which was included in the list of services that were suspended. It's very interesting because Marites earlier mentioned that the approach to this is really public order. And that's also reflected in the way that public transportation is being handled. As I still am trying to look for documents that show the hierarchy in the organization of the IATF. But from what I've seen so far, it seems that transportation was placed under peace and order. DOTR, from what I understand, is not even a member of the IATF, and yet transportation is a very, very important component in pandemics such as this. In 2015, the JICA put the number of people with private vehicles at just 12%. And that means it's leaving a whopping 88% of people relying solely on public transportation. And the tragedy, it seems, is that even in times of pandemic, policy has favored cars over the welfare of ordinary commuters, the general public. And when it shut down public transportation, it also cut off access to work, food, healthcare, and other basic human needs. So in the course of the ECQ, I feel that we need to ask this question. Is crippling the mobility just as big a threat to the welfare of the people as the virus? As you mentioned earlier, I think the fear for hunger is bigger than the fear for the virus itself. And so the pandemic, as JC mentioned earlier, the gaps that he was referring to has shown light over the so many opportunities that the government has missed in order to provide better standards of living. But I'd like to end on a more positive note. Aside from while the level of difficulty due to the complete shutdown is not new, it's not too late. There's a Chinese proverb that says that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. All is not lost, and we continue to call on the government to introduce reforms, not after the pandemic, but today. Otherwise, the new normal will just be simply the old normal. Thank you.